Welcome back to the world of the Amityville Horrors, where the supernatural takes center stage and fear is a constant companion. In part one, we explored the chilling story of the DeFeo family and their tragic demise in the infamous Amityville home. Now in part two, we continue our journey with the Lutz family's terrifying experiences during their 28-day stay in the haunted house. From demonic voices to ghostly shades, their encounters with the paranormal will send shivers down your spine. Join us as we uncover more haunting details from this infamous case. Before we begin, subscribe to our channel. As a sacrifice to the Amityville Horrors, turn on the notifications and like this video for more scary content. Now sit tight and get ready for a blood-curdling ride. To give a bit of context to the story, on November 13th, 1974, a 23-year-old man named Ronald DeFeo Jr., also known as Butch, fatally murdered his parents and 4 younger siblings while they were sleeping in their Amityville, New York home. DeFeo then rushed to a local bar crying for help. Hours after murdering them, he claimed that there were demonic voices inside his head that told him to murder his whole family. The most creepy thing about this murder is that many cliffhangers and mysteries were surrounding this case. Authorities were baffled as to how all 6 victims had passed away peacefully in their sleep. They were also perplexed by the fact that despite DeFeo not using a gun suppressor, none of the neighbors had reported hearing gunshots. The most horrific aspect was that no one knew why the murderer committed the crime. DeFeo and his father had a lot of disagreements, but many people couldn't understand why Butch would pick on the rest of the family, especially his younger brothers. Considering that he would change his story multiple times while in prison, the murderer offered no explanation for the murders. Later, on November 21st, 1975, DeFeo was convicted, guilty of 6 counts of murder after an unsuccessful insanity defense. According to CBS News in New York, he was ultimately given 6 concurrent sentences of 25 years to life. 2 years later, in 1977, author Jay Hanson's The Amityville Horror would describe the spectral terrorism experienced by the subsequent occupants of 112 Ocean Avenue. The Washington Post stated in 1979 that practically every aspect of the book had been questioned since it was published, leading to numerous lawsuits from various people who were mentioned in it. Hansen asserts in the book that the house was abandoned for 13 months following the DeFeo murder. However, George and Kathleen Lutz bought the home in December of 1975 for $80,000. Before acquiring the Dutch colonial mansion, they were made aware of the house's horrific past. Although George, Kathleen, and their 3 children had the house blessed by a priest as soon as they moved in. However, as soon as they moved in, they sensed something was not quite right. They had been going through unexplainable events. For instance, George claimed to awaken every day at 3:15 a.m., the precise moment the supposed killings had taken place. Their daughter Missy started conversing with an imaginary or possibly demonic being named Jody. Even worse, Kathy claimed to have been levitating above her bed before awakening to welts on her chest. The author, Anson, asserted that the Lutzes had reached their breaking point on January 14, 1976. After a final night, they abandoned the house and left all of their belongings behind. The family refused to discuss their situation in detail. According to the Telegraph, the Lutz family has since undergone and passed lie detector tests to verify the accuracy of the assertions that they've made about the house. However, the subsequent owners of the Amityville house said that they had never encountered anything even substantially comparable to the disturbances the Lutzes allegedly experienced. According to James Cromartie, who resided in the home from 1977 to 1987, nothing weird ever happened, except for people coming by because of the book and the movie. Still, the Lutz's terrifying tale has served as the basis for over a dozen scary films, the first of which was released in 1979 and starred James Brolin and Margot Kidder as George and Kathleen. In the various films made over the years, the supernatural happenings recounted in Anson's books have been portrayed in a wide variety of ways. The renowned paranormal investigators, the Warrens, who would later serve as the inspiration for the Conjuring series of horror films, came to the conclusion that evil forces were at work, according to ABC News, after an infamous psychic slumber party, during which they allegedly obtained photographic proof of a ghost. This haunted house was like no other. According to Ed Warren in the 2000 documentary Amityville Horror or Hoax, this house on a scale of 1 to 10 was a 10. In the meanwhile, numerous further inquiries into the Lutz incident have led to radically divergent findings. According to the New York Times, parapsychologists Stephen and Roxanne Kaplan claimed in a book that the Lutz family's purported fabrications amounted to a deliberate attempt to deceive the public for financial gain. They noted several apparent inconsistencies in the various accounts of the incident. They assert that the Lutz couple invented the horror event to profit from the associated media attention. Snopes, a website that verifies information, has gone so far as to declare that the claim that the Amityville Horror book and subsequent films are based on actual occurrences is entirely false. According to Snopes, Butch DeFeo's attorney, William Weber, acknowledged that he and the Lutzes created this horror story over many bottles of wine to get his client a new trial. Joe Nickel, a professional skeptic who disproves paranormal claims, has been prepared to dismiss the controversy surrounding the mansion. The bottom line is that it was a hoax, or is, simply at best a matter that's not proven, and that's not good for America's most famous haunted house, Nickel told ABC News. Despite all the allegations, George Lutz remained outspoken about the rejection of his story. In Amityville Horror or Hoax, Lutz stated, "I believe this has stayed alive for 25 years because it's a true story. It doesn't mean everything ever said about it is true. It's certainly not a hoax. It's really easy to call something a hoax. I wish it was. It's not." When the first suspicion surfaced, journalist Laura Didio was writing about the Lutz family's experiences and has since questioned attempts to identify them. Didio said in Amityville Horror or Hoax, "One of the things that struck me about their story is that they seemed genuinely frightened and genuinely moved by whatever had happened to them in this house. If the Lutz family sincerely believes their experiences are valid, despite solid proof that the horror part of the Amityville mansion is a hoax, to what extent may the entire scenario be ignored as an elaborate con?" The 2013 documentary My Amityville Horror explicitly poses this question. Interviews with Daniel Lutz, Kathleen's child who allegedly survived the phantasmal assault, reveal a guy troubled by his history. Daniel said in the movie, "This is not something I asked for. I've been running away from it, and it finally caught up with me." The 2013 documentary uncovered many more facts about the Lutz family. Long before the media started to focus on the family, Daniel, one of the children, talks of the abuse he endured at the hands of his stepfather and the patriarch's apparent involvement with Satanism. Daniel's evidence is dubious, to say the least, as it is obviously based on hazy memories of the ominous books George was supposedly seen reading. But Daniel still sticks to the stories his mother and stepfather told in their books and interviews. At some point, it doesn't even matter if ghosts terrorized the Lutz family because Daniel believes it so wholeheartedly, and listening to him tell his tale becomes its kind of truth. Critic Drew Taylor said in his review of the film for IndieWire, "Maybe it's oversimplified to ask whether the haunting was a hoax." Now, a lot of time has passed since the Amityville Horror, In the late 1970s, the house at 112 Ocean Avenue underwent extensive remodeling and no longer resembles the building in the movies. Newsday said the new owners paid $605,000 for it in 2017. What about the Lutz couple personally? Following their 1980 divorce, Kathleen died from emphysema in 2004 and George from a heart illness in 2006. Ultimately, the allegedly overblown novel and its Hollywood adaptations are mostly to blame for the appeal of the Amityville house and its connected New Jersey residents. Still, horror fans who are genuinely convinced by the hauntings continue to go there today, hoping to spot a ghost. And that's a wrap for the Amityville Horrors. In part 1, we discussed the tragic murders of the DeFeo family in their Amityville home. Part 2 focused on the Lutz family and the supernatural events they claim to have experienced while living in the same house. Despite the controversy surrounding the story, the Amityville Horror remains a haunting and unsettling tale that continues to captivate audiences today. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more on this eerie and mysterious topic. And don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to hear more horror stories. See you in the next one.